Hey there, everyone. I'm Will.
And I'm Karen.
And we're welcoming you back to the Skeptic Metaphysicians, where we, if you're watching the video, can tell that we are not in our studio.
I know, it looks like we're in a spaceship
We are elsewhere.
elsewhere.
And that is the true sense of the word. Not only are we elsewhere, but we're also wearing the required uniform for this elsewhere place. Karen, where are we?
We're in Richmond, and we are in a very special spaceship-looking like place.
We are USA MedBed. We're going to be talking to Sean here, who is the man behind the technology. It's a very special modality that we've been invited to come and explore, and we did do some testings beforehand. So
Well, one thing that I have to pipe in is that it's USA MedBed, and when you see it, you walk in and you see, just regular hospital beds, but there's like a other area.
yeah,
There's so much more, so it's totally different.
yeah. So before we go much further, you got to introduce Sean. Sean,
Yes, sorry.
thanks for being on the show today.
I am super excited to have you here. And like I said, place is fantastic, but the professionalism of this whole setup, I really do feel like I'm in space right now. So, I feel like you brought the spaceship, and now I've been able to communicate in real life terms where people can actually hear everything acoustically perfect.
Well, that's very kind of you to
Yes.
say.
About 5 years ago, I started hearing a lot about the MedBeds and MedBed technology and Tesla technology, and I found it to be fascinating. And I thought, well, this is just absolutely great. There's going to be these pods that are going to come out, and they're very sophisticated types of technology. I've obviously learned a lot about that in the last 5 years, but the whole quest and the goal was to see what might be available in an alternative option for some additional things that people might be able to do to get themselves a little bit better, to give themselves a little less pain, a little less discomfort.
Right.
And in some situations, maybe even restore their health back a little bit.
So in a way, you help with the people who have these injuries and things like that have to go to the hospital and have care at home. But then on the back side of things, you help them not get there in the first place, which is where the med beds come from.
Well, exactly. And I think the interesting part of it is that now we're really tapping into the mainstream.
Mhm.
The goal is prevention.
Yeah.
The goal isn't saying, well, we've hit a real serious note right now. We need to go into high rev mode to find something that can fix or help something.
Right.
We can get into the prevention mode, which then tags into a lot of real popular terms right now that you'll hear online, which would be anti-aging, biohacking, a lot of those different things. But like the old saying goes, an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure.
Sure.
And so now coming through that tunnel and really developing and learning a lot about the technology, the goal, as I was just saying to you earlier, is to cross the finish line with dignity and have a healthy, happy life. The goal is to not start breaking down in your 50s and 60s and getting into a situation where you're going to have to get a walker or a wheelchair or any of these different things. One of the statistics that I like to talk about is that 30% of women that break their hip will never recover from that.
Oh, wow.
Oh my
They will
gosh.
never fully recover. There will be some type of injury then that they'll actually have to have a cane or a walker, or there will be some lingering aspect. And, to me, that's what happens. You start with a cane, then it's a walker, then it's a wheelchair. And then all of a sudden, you're putting on weight and now you're in bed. The reality for me is a lot of beds I sell, the people get in them will never get out of them. Yeah, I think that there's a part of that to me is sad in a way that I feel sometimes people resign to that as their fate. And they're not able to visualize and get into the world of the metaphysical where any and all things are possible, where anything is possible with or without the technology. As much as I love the technology and I talk about it all the time, the greatest technology is a technology within our bodies, right?
Yeah.
And it all starts with your mind, and the mind needs to be programmed for success. And one of the greatest speakers and probably one of the greatest examples in our current time right now is Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And so Dr. Joe, the story with him breaking his back, being in a hospital,
Yeah.
and then what are they telling him? This is how it's always going to be.
Right.
And what is the key thing that breaks him out of that? The mentality is, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No way, Jose.
No way, Jose.
Right.
I will do this. So I feel like that is the very first technology that needs to be developed and put to use is the mind.
Right.
And then from there, the other stuff can all come into play. But I feel like that knowledge base of people understanding what their inner power and inner strength is the number one most important thing that needs to start off the whole thing.
Sure.
So you mentioned other things as being preventative, but could they possibly help someone who is already in one of the other beds?
100%, 120%. A lot of technology that we've got is just not known. People just don't know it's out there.
I want to get a little bit into the technology.
Each one of these rings is one of the most powerful healing frequencies for the body. So the Tesla multi-wave oscillator is primarily doing three things. The first thing is it's sending beneficial frequency sets into the body. The second thing that it's doing is it's bringing electrical energy into the body. The body runs on electricity. And so in order for the body to work at maximum potential, it needs to have the batteries full of juice. When you're 30 years old, you run on 100 millivolts of electrical energy. When you're 70 years old, you run on 30 millivolts of electrical energy. And anytime you're sick, you'll know that you don't have energy to go run and do a lot of stuff because your body's taking that energy for recovery. So that's the second thing. Frequency sets, energy to the cells. And then the third thing and the most powerful thing, it's called a multi-wave oscillator because your cells oscillate or vibrate. And when your cells are not healthy, the vibrational rate starts to go down. So if we say the maximum, your potential oscillation is about 15,000 vibrations per second. If you're really sick, it could go down to 10. And when you're like on death's doorstep, it could be 5. So what it's doing is it's restoring healthy cells to their maximum potential, their maximum oscillation. And in turn, what happens is it helps get rid of bad cells in the body that you don't want, because the unhealthy cells, the pathogens, and what I call the garbage cells all resonate at low vibration. So when they're put in a field that's ideal for healthy cells, it naturally eliminates some of the unhealthy cells. These were produced in Europe from 1930 to 1940. They made them by the thousands. It was originally notes that came from Tesla, later developed by Georges Lakhovsky, and they had these in hospitals in New York City and had amazing results with them. So these have a lot of history, a lot of documentation. Lakhovsky was Russian, did all of his work out of France, so they're very popular in Europe. These are handmade in Germany. And so the Tesla paddles, you would put those on the body. That's going to do a lot of the same types of things the multi-wave oscillator will do, but it's going to do it in a much more focused area. So if you want to put energy directly on the lungs, if you want to put it on the heart, people use these a lot for the kidneys. They use it a lot for stiffness, soreness, arthritis. We've got 3 different paddles that are sort of the oscillation type paddles. You've got Flower of Life, Whirlpool, and Labyrinth. So you have different energy patterns so the body doesn't get acclimated or too used to the same thing. And then we have the PEMF paddle, which sends a lot of focused energy. I call it the donut, but this will be something that you can put if you got a sore shoulder, if you got a sore area of your back, if you've got a sore knee. This can go into very specific parts. It runs on a timer, which we have right here. And we do have a parasite removal tool somewhere nearby that also has 2 paddles that helps kill parasites. Parasite and parasite removal is actually becoming quite a popular subject. So these are another Tesla station that we have right here. This is going to be actually a little bit more sophisticated version of these right here. This is going to get more into actual medbed type technology. Medbed really nothing more than energy and frequency based technology. So it's not really anything other than measuring what type of frequency based technology you're using. These are basically the Tesla coils and the shungite coils. And so what these are doing, which is a little bit different, is they're working in pairs. So when you're working in pairs, what you're going to do is you're going to put one in front of the body, one in back. I use these a lot for people with spinal cord injuries and people that have internal issues, because what it's doing is that each one is sending a signal, and in the middle where those 2 signals collide, it implodes and creates a little energy field. And inside that energy field, it rejuvenates the cells within the body. And so for people with spinal injuries, what we're trying to do is rejuvenate those areas that have nerve tissue and different types of issues within the back. But you have this set right here, which are the Tesla coils, and then you have these right here, which are shungite.
So the package actually includes both. And then what you do is you alternate those. The beauty about this, which I love, this just plugs into a phone jack. So you get just a little phone jack that you can plug in, and they run off the power of an iPhone. Phase conjugation is two centripetal forces hitting and imploding. And when that happens, it creates an energy field where all the negative frequencies are dissolved and all the positive ones then are at full potential. And so centripetal is all being done through sacred geometry, and you're going to see that being repeated with other technology we have, including the plasma energy technology. We have red light hats, red light masks, red light panels. Red light technology has a lot of FDA clearance. It's being used for all different types of things, but when you put the hat on, it stimulates hair follicles, stimulates circulation. There's a lot of documented information on hair growth. It's also very good for the skin. So in the world that we live in today, let's see if this one's on, but in the world we live in today, which is kind of the world of Botox, there are a lot of other options out there with red light that can also do a lot for the skin that are non-invasive. And something like this right here, you just put it on your face. It's already set on a timer. This is referred to as the celestial pod, and it does a multitude of different things. If you come up here to the cabin, you'll see that you've got a multitude of different technologies, including cell resonance, ozone, negative ions, vibration, which I can adjust the vibrational. You got far infrared heating. You've got terahertz frequency, which we're going to talk about, graphene, chromotherapy, and gyrotherapy. And so when you're laying in this chamber, you're getting multiple technologies simultaneously. This could be considered a medbed. A medbed theoretically is just nothing more than a capsule that has different types of technology in it, and that could be PEMF, it could be all different types of things. This one here is running quite a few different ones. This is ideal for, it's really good for rejuvenation, it's really good for cleansing the lymphatic system, and this is probably one of our most popular pieces of technology that we have here.
Totally Star Trek.
The most powerful piece of technology on the planet. This is the Phi-Ray system. This is a dual tube plasma energy system. So basically right here, you have the computer, which is the base core piece right here. The main thing I do want to show you is that this thing is very easy to use. On, boom, I hit it, it goes on. Off, it goes off. We can mess with it, but everything in there is preset. And so what it's doing is it's running a bandwidth of all the most powerful frequency sets for the body. And it's also doing the dual tube system, meaning that you've got two centripetal forces coming from each side. And when they implode, it creates this energy field that has all the most beneficial frequency sets in it. This gets really deep though, because what happens is that that energy field is a plasma energy field, which is your consciousness and your aura. Everything is plasma, and it becomes recursive. So through that centripetal formation, and from doing that, it becomes a recursive energy field that taps into the frequency of your DNA, and it becomes a mindful and intelligent energy field. So then you start getting into things with intention. Now you're starting to enhance lucid dreaming, you're starting to enhance clairvoyance, you're starting to enhance all the different spiritual gifts you have. Your frequency raises, you actually start becoming more aware and more conscious. People, you're thinking about them, 5 minutes later the phone rings. All those types of things, you know, tapping into Akashic records, the collective consciousness. So from a bodily standpoint, extremely powerful. From a spiritual standpoint, a metaphysical standpoint, even additional benefits. These are the technologies inscribed in hieroglyphics. These are the plasma energy systems that were being used thousands of years ago that we've sort of rediscovered, which is in turn an advancement from the multi-wave oscillators, which is where we started the whole thing. They're picking up the notes of Nikola Tesla. They're advancing the technology. There was a gentleman in France named Antoine Prairie who picked up the notes from Tesla, Lakhovsky, and said, let's start doing this with plasma energy. And so look, Prairie worked with the French government, had over 5,000 case studies working with plasma energy. And then the third dimensional, or the third generational scientists, Dan Winter and others, said, wow, if we actually separated the two systems, the two plasma systems, and we put somebody in what's called the 0 point. So what's happening from each station is that they're spiraling in, but where they collide is called the 0 point. And the person now is in the 0 point. The early plasma technology was single tube. That was Royal Raymond Rife. And that technology is very powerful. And we're going to get in and we can talk about that. But Rife in the 1920s built a microscope with over 6,000 working parts, 60,000 time magnification. And he was able to look at living cells under a microscope. And all he did was put the cell on the little petri dish, ran frequency sets through it until he found what frequency stimulated the cell and what frequency would dissipate and kill the cell. And then they put together the catalog. So the Rife catalog and the Rife frequency set is one of the most well-known. There's a lot more now, but they use the same process of doing that. And so they figured out that, you know, in addition, now the Rife technology, the single tube plasma technology, I have a book that I'll show you, has 3,500 frequency codes. You tell me what it is that we're working on. I go in, it runs those frequency sets. It's very good for killing bad cells. So Lyme disease and viruses and parasites and Epstein-Barr and all these different things, the Rife technology is amazing. But the scientists now said, wow, if we took the tube and we made it male and female and we ran signals from both sides where it imploded, you would be in what we call the 0 point, the sweet spot. So the dual tube plasma systems are actually ideal for rejuvenation. It actually performs something called negantropy, which is also pretty far out there, but what it is, it's time reversal. So when you get a system that's powerful enough to perform negantropy and you're doing time reversal, things can spin forward into chaos. When things revert back, they can only revert back into perfect order. And so this system is not only a mindful and intelligent energy field when it produces that, it's also performing negantropy, and it's running a massive bandwidth of frequency sets through the body. Every part of the body takes the frequency that it needs. Your cartilage is different than your bone, different than your blood, different than everything else. And so when you run that bandwidth of spectrums through your body, it separates and each part of the body gets what it needs. And then through the process of negantropy, it's reversing back and giving the cells the information, restoring them back to their perfect homeostasis. So this actually is red light technology. This is a full body red light panel. We can basically go up or go down. I can adjust it based on getting the person in, finding anything that's comfortable for them. It has red light and far infrared light. Like I said, a lot of documented FDA information on this technology, but it's good for detoxification. It's good for circulation. Red light basically doubles or triples the production of ATP, which is the energy that your body runs on. So your cells have there's mitochondria that produce this energy, and the red light stimulates the mitochondria to produce more ATP.
Oh.
So, and it's being used for weight loss. Like we were saying, it stimulates the follicles in the hair. It's being used for hair growth. This is a full body panel, so obviously the whole body's getting it. Grounding is probably one of the most powerful forms of natural wellness and healing that you've got. Grounding is really, what it really is actually just touching the earth. So when you're touching the earth, it's technically earthing, but a lot of people aren't physically touching the earth. And then what they're doing is they're touching fabric. This is basically grounding fabric. Now the fabric, if you can see here, this is all silver thread. And it's not a strand of silver, it's actually coiled silver. And the reason it's coiled silver is that you're gonna flex and bend and push into the fabric. So you don't want a strand, because if you start doing this, the strands will break. But basically what happens is that outside of every home is a copper grounding rod. And that grounding rod is out there. So if there's ever a surge in electrical energy, a lightning strike, it'll take that surge of electrical energy, it'll send it into that copper grounding rod, and the earth will neutralize it. But on the flip side of that, because that grounding rod is copper, it can also bring the earth energy into the outlet. So all we need is the outlet. These are plastic. And from the outlet, it brings it into the fabric, and from the fabric, it brings it into the body through the silver, which silver obviously is conductive. So when you're touching and laying on this fabric, it's non-different than laying on the ground. Now, the number one thing that earthing does is it brings electrons into the body. Electrons are essential for neutralizing free radicals. The number one killer of people in the world is inflammation. Inflammation is caused by a buildup of free radical cells. Free radical cells, by definition, are cells missing electrons. So when you're not touching the earth, your body's deficient of electrons. When your body's deficient of electrons, there's a buildup of free radicals. Free radicals then, being unstable, missing electrons, basically cause inflammation. It's silent inflammation. the first thing it does is it basically compromises your red blood cells. So your red blood cells start clumping and clotting. Once your red blood cells clump and clot, it puts additional pressure on the heart to move the blood. Within 2 hours of grounding, you can immediately bring the electrons in. They coat the red blood cell. It lowers the blood viscosity. But the first and also thing important that it's doing is it's neutralizing the free radicals. So people have ongoing issues with ongoing stiffness, soreness, arthritis, all these different things. All cardiovascular disease, according to Stephen Sinatra, cardiovascular surgeon with a Nobel Prize, all cardiovascular starts with inflammation. So by not touching the earth, by not having electrons, you're basically building up silent inflammation. And according to the World Health Organization, 8 out of 10 people drop over dead from some type of inflammation-related disease. So by getting the electrons in the body, by basically neutralizing free radicals, by reducing inflammation, by improving and increasing your blood quality, that's the kind of thing that you're getting from simply grounding or earthing. In addition to that, your brain waves run on the Schumann resonance. The Schumann resonance is the frequency of the earth. And so with all the electronics, with all the cell phones and all the technology that is being used these days, what it's doing, the Wi-Fi and everything else, what it's doing is it's basically, it's taking your brain waves out of that Schumann resonance. And so when you touch this when you sleep and you're on the Schumann resonance, you're getting up to 20% deeper REM sleep. You're getting a reduction up to 20% in depression and anxiety. And there's a whole host of benefits that go with rejuvenation, also through just by good sleep. And so, you know, the technology with the grounding and touching the earth, it seems very simplistic. You know, I'm not a hippie, but I'm not far from the hippie generation. And anytime I hear earthing, the first thing I'm thinking is Woodstock and a big party and, you know, that whole thing. But there's actually a lot of science to it. This is another dual tube plasma energy system. And basically the difference between this one and the one that we just saw is that this one here runs very specific frequency sets. So the first one is sending a massive bandwidth. This one right here, we're coming in and going right into very specific body parts of the brain, internal organs, knees, shoulders, back, kidneys, whatever it might be. And so, and chakras, alignment, energy, you know, metaphysical things. So this is another different system that we run. And these right here, once again, are doing the exact same thing. They're both sending a centipedal signal into the middle. In the middle here, which we would call the 0 point, it's creating an energy field that becomes recursive plasma energy, which is the makeup of consciousness, your energy. And then that energy field becoming recursive becomes a mindful and intelligent energy field.
So we're on the Skeptic Metaphysicians, so I got to ask the question, like, what's the difference between this and what you see at like
Spencer's Gifts.
Yeah.
That's what I grew up with. The big difference is this box. The box has a whole set of computerized signal that we can run with, and it also runs 20,000 watts. So it's a whole different base that they put on this that actually really kind of like, it's like dropping a 454 motor into a Pinto and saying, okay, man, let's go drag race.
All right, so it's not like that you put your finger on it and it tracks your
it'll still do that. It'll still do that.
It's not a party game. It's actually
no, actually, and I'll show you the app. It's on my iPhone, so you actually run the system off of an iPhone or an iPad. Okay. And then you can go in and you'll hear the frequency signals. And then what I'll do is I will set it up so we Bluetooth it in. So we'll run the frequency sets into the system, but I'll Bluetooth it so it's not loud. And this is a really powerful system and also somewhat affordable.
Well, after that comprehensive tour, it was time to test out the goods ourselves. And Karen volunteered to be the test subject.
And I'm going to drop this down. Now, one thing also, at any time, if you decide you want to get out, you can just push this up.
Oh, okay.
So you're not really locked into anything. So I'm going to go ahead and lower this down and then just adjust your neck. There you go. Perfect right there. I'm going to put just a little heat. I usually start off when somebody first does it with a light vibration because like with anything you get acclimated to it and you can do more, but the vibration is really good for pushing and cleansing the lymphatic system. Oh. And if you know Nikola Tesla, understand the secrets of the universe, think energy, frequency, and vibration. So what are we doing? We're putting all those things into this particular capsule here. Terahertz frequency is an optimal frequency for the body. It's a frequency range next to infrared and microwave that is a optimal frequency for your cells. So you're running terahertz frequency, graphene, which is the magnets, chromotherapy, which is light therapy, ozone, negative ions. So we're going to shoot right now for about a 20-minute session.
Okay. Don't fall asleep.
I know. Oh my God.
Sleep is totally normal.
I would think so. This is really relaxing.
Yeah.
You sound funny. How are you doing in there?
Listen to my out breath. Ready? Did you get that?
I did.
And then I breathe out my nose. It's saying that it lasts longer.
You meditating in there? Are you relaxed in there?
I'm so relaxed.
So could you stay in there for a
I could sit
while?
here all day and sound like a goat. So relaxing.
So, as much as I hated to do it, her session came to an end and it was time to continue the interview.
Just jump in here for just a minute, just to kind of recalibrate, because being in that position and kind of being,
What? That's wrong.
yeah, bounced around, it'll just take a minute to kind of get the blood flow back. And
I know, man. It's kind of so relaxing. Could have just passed out and stayed there all day.
it happens.
The term medbed is a very general term, and I feel like it's very misunderstood by the vast number of people, which rightfully so, because nobody's really doing data drops to really tell you what that is. And so the term medbed for me is just simply energy and frequency-based technology that's designed to get the body into homeostasis or into perfect health.
Cool.
And so in this day and age right now, there's a lot of pods, right? There's a lot of pods like the one that you were just in. And inside those pods, there's a multitude of different technologies that you put in there. And so those are basically recipes for various types of wellness or enhancing the body's ability to recover, heal, and achieve homeostasis. Now, one that comes to mind, which is one of the first ones I saw, is called a theta chamber. And a theta chamber is a complete pod that you get in. We're completely enclosed.
That sounds like sci-fi.
It's
Like
100%
it's Saturn
sci-fi.
V walking into Theta Bay Chamber.
Oh, it is cool. And I saw that at a trade show. It was the A4M where they unveil a lot of this technology. And everybody was like, what is that thing? And it's called the theta chamber. Well, what the theta chamber is basically a multitude of different technologies that are really designed to put the brain into a theta state.
Oh,
And so what that's doing is it's really helping people a lot with drug and alcohol abuse and different types of things that are really geared towards shifting the neural pathways into back to healthy lifestyles and healthy decisions.
right.
And now that's the technology that if you look at it, you'd say that's a medbed. And I would say you're absolutely right, it is. But if you look at what we've got back here, which is another sort of medbed type chamber, we're running terahertz, negative ions, ozone, vibration, red light. That's a whole nother thing geared to basically enhancing the body's ability to stay in homeostasis and good health, and it can adjust and fix and do a lot of different things. But when you're talking med beds, what you're really talking about is what is the technology that you're running in the system, because you've got red light, you've got PEMF, you've got ozone therapy. I mean, you've got the plasma energy systems, which to me are some of the most powerful technologies out there. And you don't actually need a pod to make those work. You can strip the technology out and set it up the way we've got it here, where you can actually lay down in a comfortable bed. You don't need the whole, the whole facade of the pod type thing, which actually, from a sci-fi standpoint, is really cool.
It's
you can't
cool,
deny
but,
that.
But I'd be afraid of coming out as a Brundlefly.
Well, yes, or coming out as a 10-year-old child when you went as a 50-year-old.
Or that.
I wouldn't mind that.
Well,
Maybe not 10.
10 is a tough
Maybe like
age.
19.
Yeah.
21 is usually the age. Or
Yeah.
21.
I'd be like
25.
25, 28. That's really the sweet
Yeah.
spot. Maybe 32, right? But 10's too young. So you're saying these things have been found in ancient Egyptian writings?
Yeah, what's really interesting is that the dual tube plasma energy systems are actually inscribed in hieroglyphics in pyramids. And there is a little bit of a story that goes with that. I don't know if we want to fly off in the spaceship.
I mean, we're on the Skeptic Metaphysicians, so let's do it.
It looks like we're in a spaceship. So
Okay, I mean, let's just jump in the spaceship and let's time travel.
Let's do it.
All right. So basically the story goes that at one time, this kind of gets into off-planet technology. I don't know if it's the Sumerians or if it's the Anunnaki, but anybody that's out there kind of has probably heard those terms. If you binge watch Ancient Aliens, we are totally right there, baby.
Right. I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens.
Well, I like to say it's off-planet because who knows what's going on out there. But
That's true.
There was a time when the Kuiper Belt was actually a planet. So if anybody's familiar with the galaxy, we've got all the planets, but for some reason, there's just a massive amount, like millions of asteroids that are still spinning in orbit, but they're just asteroids. There's nothing solid there except millions of asteroids. And the story goes that at one time that was a planet. That planet, through a extraterrestrial war, got blown up. It disrupted the galaxy, the Earth's atmosphere. And so the ancients, as they would call them, came down and they started building the pyramids to restore the Earth's atmosphere and to stabilize the Earth's atmosphere. And so that was really the key reason the pyramids were built initially, was to stabilize the Earth's atmosphere. Now, all those pyramids are established on ley lines and magnetic lines, so they're not just randomly put in there. And so that was actually being done. Now, they were also the first free energy system. They also had a lot of benefit, which they were able to help germinate seeds, and they were able to help with harvests and crops and different things like that. And if anybody's familiar with the Bosnian pyramid, there's a gentleman named Sam Brazanovic who has, for the last 15 years, excavated and brought thousands and thousands and thousands of people to the Bosnian pyramid, which is now a very popular place for people to visit. They have to date over 5,000 miraculous stories of different types of healing that has occurred underneath the pyramids.
Wow.
And when you start looking at these civilizations, when you start looking at the way that these things were built, and then you start understanding the scale of it, and that's just not the pyramids. That gets into Chichen Itza, and it gets into Baalbek, and it gets into all these different megalithic areas where there was something going on there, that these people were very, very, very advanced.
Wow.
And so if they were building structures at that point that were so advanced we can't do it now, then they more than likely had technology that was also very advanced for wellness. Now, the story goes that the ancients, as we will call them, when they got into the Earth's atmosphere, it was not conducive for their body types. And so their bodies were aging prematurely because the Earth's atmosphere, from whatever place they came from, wasn't the same. I think that's not much of a stretch. I think we know now that all these different planets have different types of atmospheres.
Sure.
But they were using the dual tube plasma energy systems for rejuvenation. And that was technology that was coming from quote unquote off planet. The interesting part about this whole thing is how it comes full circle. It comes full circle because there's this rumor that there's these free MedBeds, and this whole MedBed thing is going to be coming out, and it's going to be rolling out, and they're going to be free to the general public. That's been circulating for probably a good 10, maybe 15 years. And I'm not saying that that's not going to happen. I would just say that that's probably not coming anytime in the near future. But the key thing here is that we're just getting the same technology that's already been here previously, that we're already getting our hands on and sort of rediscovering.
The big question that comes to mind is, was Tesla from off planet? Where did he get this technology from to start the whole thing?
That's a good question.
Actually, there's a lot of really good stories about Tesla and where this stuff came from. Now, there's talk that Tesla might have been a Pleiadian.
Aha.
However, the thing that I think is very interesting is that Tesla himself said that he was getting data drops from off-planet or through like lucid dreaming. And so Tesla gave a lot of the credit to the data drops and the information and knowledge he was getting from off-planet entities.
Gotcha.
And so there was speculation about whether he was or wasn't, but even Tesla himself gave credit to tapping into communication with sort of off-planet entities that gave him data drops that led to a lot of the technology that he developed. And so I find it interesting because we're trying to go to the future, but it's very difficult to go to the future without looking in the past.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
then you realize that the past and the future and our current present moment, including this interview, are all intertwined in the same conversation.
Yeah, it's all happening at the same time.
Yep.
Is what they say, right?
Simultaneous.
Yeah,
Oh my
simultaneously, yeah.
So it sounds like he was channeling this information.
Yeah, channeling or somehow going off out of body and finding
Yeah.
it,
So kind of taking this in a slightly different direction, but not really. People now are starting to become very familiar with the term and the work of Reiki, using energy to heal. Is that like a baby step into this, or is it the same type of energy? Is it totally different?
Well, Reiki is basically being able to feel, harness, and move energy. So the key thing about Reiki, number one, is developing the sensitivity to energy, because you have to be able to feel the energy fields that you're working with, which in your hands, you've got hundreds of acupuncture points and reflexology points, and everybody has a different sensitivity to feeling or sensing energy. And some people are more dialed into it than others, but the core actual essence of what it really is moving and flowing energy. It's finding energy blocks, it's finding stagnant energy, and it's using your hands and breath work and different things to move and unclog those areas or to send energy into different parts of the body. The thing that I find interesting, because I've interviewed a lot of Reiki people on my podcast, is that it seems that when they get into those areas where they get really sensitive to energy, it also seems that there's clairvoyance and there's a whole nother host of things that start interacting in there. Right. Now, there's those TV shows that we see a lot with psychic mediums that'll say, hey, I'm here talking to you, and I think there's a woman that says she's your mom that's next to you. Well, basically, the medbed technology actually starts going into those fields. When real medbed technology, now medbed technology initially, when people are looking for it, there's been some type of breakdown with the body and they're going, oh my gosh, I need something that's like out there. But what you find with the dual tube plasma energy systems is that in addition to being able to do things on a third dimensional bodily level, they start enhancing clairvoyance. They start enhancing lucid dreaming. They start, the beauty for both of you is that you've come from the beach areas where you've got the Edward Cayce stuff down there.
We know them very well.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I love anything related to Edgar Cayce, but Edgar Cayce is a perfect example that somebody was working at a very high frequency, was able to tap into the Akashic records and the collective consciousness.
Right.
We all have that ability. Now, some of us are, we're just not aware of it, number one. And some of us are in just different stages of development, mentally, physically, and spiritually, where for some people it might be of interest, for others it might not, which is all well and good. The goal really ultimately on everything is to know that love and compassion is the most powerful frequency. And having that and being kind and all these other things, that's the ultimate frequency that we all want to grow.
Right.
And
being in service to others. And
yes. But, I think that what's really fascinating is that once you start looking past the third dimensional benefits of technology and you start understanding that, wow, there's all these metaphysical and spiritual gifts that this technology is enhancing. Now, one of the other things I want to talk about with plasma energy spheres, and we've got multiple different setups with those here. We've got some in the other room. We'll use these here, is that they also perform something called negantropy.
Gesundheit.
Gesundheit, yes. Do you have a Kleenex?
I use my arm.
Don't ask me to pronounce that word twice. It's hard enough just to remember it.
Right.
But negantropy, if you look that up, what it actually is time reversal.
Oh.
So now
So you're dropping these things like as if like, oh yeah, and literally we're talking Star Trek stuff. Dual bulb plasma systems and warp cores and
I'm glad, because I was thinking when you said neganthropy, I'm thinking like
something about the dead. Necromancy.
Something. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
this is interesting. But now you're talking like the opposite.
Let's go with necromancy, not the other thing you were thinking about.
I wasn't thinking about that.
Okay. So you're talking about something that reverses time.
time reversal. So when you get into physics of what actually time is a measurement of spin energy. And so when you can reverse the spin, which negantropy actually does, and it's a term that's a physics term, it's actually something you can look up, but that's what some of this technology is doing, is it's reversing spin. And so what it's doing is it's reversing the cellular energy, and when things reverse back, they can only reverse back into perfect order.
Interesting.
When they start moving forward, they can get into chaotic areas, things can break down, but when you reverse spin and you reverse cells back to their original true blueprint, they can only reverse back into perfect order. And with just a little asterisk there, I will tell anybody and everybody that's saying, wow, this is really out there. This comes from a gentleman named Daniel Winter. Dan Winter is a brilliant physicist, worked for IBM, probably in his mid-70s right now. And everything that we talk about and everything that Dan does is based 100% on physics. And so Dan is the one. Now, there's other technology. I think we talked about the EE system, and there's other, energy and frequency-based systems out there that are becoming very well known, that are actually kind of making their way to the mainstream. But when you start looking at all these technologies and you get into the plasma energy technology, that's when you're really at a pinnacle piece of technology that's a very cutting-edge upfront thing. And then you get into the esoteric value of that.
Right. And you mentioned something earlier I want to get back to now. Mindful, conscious energy. What?
Yes.
Like what?
well, let's just start with something that's even like not that technical. Crystals.
Okay, let's talk about crystals. You're saying they're conscious?
The energy fields of crystals are actually conscious, intelligent energy fields.
Conscious, intelligent.
Yes, and what's actually really interesting, because this all kind of all interweaves with other ancient civilizations, but let's talk about Native American Indians, and let's talk about indigenous people, because something as simple as water is also a mindful and intelligent energy field.
Okay, I think that we knew.
Yes.
Okay, so if you know that water, now we think we know what water is, but actually, do we really know what it is? I mean, if we're familiar with the work of Masaru Emoto,
Yes.
you can project your thoughts into a water, and you can change the composition of the molecular structure of water with your thoughts.
We just were speaking with someone about that, and he was talking about you can do this, and then when you drink it, you can actually drink your thoughts.
Yes.
Oh, that sounds cool.
Well, that's actually quite interesting.
I would need to clean my thoughts up before I.
Well, but that actually is kind of interesting, because that gets into what is the vibration that I'm carrying in my day-to-day life. If I understand that my thoughts can control the molecular structure of water, and I'm 70% water, what is the depressing, what is the anger, what is the frustration, what is that vibration within my body doing to help assist me contribute to possibly having health issues?
Wow.
And on the flip side of that, if I am aware of that, see, this goes way deeper than technology, because now we're getting into mindset, now we're getting into energy, frequency, and vibration that we carry. Right. And now it becomes mindful in the fact that you have to know, I've shifted out of my happy-go-lucky self, and I'm frustrated right now, and I'm upset about something, and this is called the wave of life. It's the river of life, and that's the way life goes, which is perfectly normal. But the goal is to say, whoa, there has been a shift right now, and I'm not feeling so cool, and I need to listen to some good music, because happiness and ecstasy is your normal vibrational frequency. That's what makes everything happen and everything work. And in the day and age that we're in, it's very easy to shift out of that. I mean,
very easy.
There's a lot of stuff out there. So catching that and getting yourself into alignment, like spiritually, mentally, physically, that I need to go hit the gym. I need to do a walk. I need to do something to shift me out of that. I'm going to go back to the water, the consciousness part of that. trees are sentinel beings. Native American Indians would actually consider the elder tree of their area to be an elder, and they would talk to the trees. And I've had people on my podcasts that are tuned in to the frequency of trees and know them to have a personal, personality, right, as a sentinel being. And so I think when it gets right down to it, it's like, how much do we really know about anything in our world? Right? I mean, we're talking about conscious energy fields from off-planet technology with dual, but what's happening with the plasma systems, to kind of circle this all back, is that the plasma energy systems are dual tube plasma energy systems. So what they're doing, all life comes from centripetal force, which is basically the spiraling inward and the implosion. That's what causes gravity. That's really the core. That's what actually creates a sperm and an egg to produce a child. It's all centripetal. It's implosion, not explosion, implosion. And so when you're dealing with these centripetal forces, what they're doing is they're hitting in the middle. The person is what we call a 0 point. So they're directly in between those. And what's happening is now you're creating this plasma energy field. This person's in the center of it. And that energy field becomes toroidal. And so it starts spinning almost like the shape of a heart. And as that energy field starts becoming recursive, and it starts doing that, it taps into the frequency that your DNA runs on. And therefore, it becomes a mindful and intelligent energy field. Now, why is that important? That's important because now we're getting into intention. Now we're getting into actual plasma energy fields that are coming off your third eye, where you're really focusing on outcomes and what you want to happen with your life, which now gets into a whole nother genre of stuff about manifestation and all these different things. But you're in a mindful, intelligent energy field. You do not want to be thinking about what's for lunch.
Right.
That's true.
You really kind of want to circle that back. But what's interesting is you find that the mind also needs work, just like other things do, and you need to be able to focus. But what happens is that when you are able to focus your energy on something like your pinky, and your pinky starts to tingle, as an example, what you're doing is you're building this plasma energy field, which is also toroidal. It's like a tornado. And people that are masters of this, as they focus that energy on certain things, that energy field becomes bigger and more powerful. And Aboriginal people, as an example, were able to basically control and steer tornadoes because their plasma energy fields and their ability to focus that energy, and tornadoes and thunderstorms are all plasma energy fields, just for the record. The sun is actually a conscious, intelligent energy field, which for me, because I'm a big history guy, I'm like, oh, I've been to all these places and I get the sun god. It brought rain and they needed the sun. But it goes actually way deeper, because there was a thing done where they had 11 million kids around the planet Earth sing songs to the sun. And it literally changed the number of solar flares. It literally had a physical effect on the sun.
Wow.
Wow.
So here we are walking into this very scientific place, and we are talking all kinds of woo, Sean. This is right in our alley. That's awesome.
No, this is really good. But I think the important thing to know is that the technology is only as good as the person using it, and that you cannot come in and just use technology and not be tuned in to all the other things that you as a spiritual being are capable of doing. And that the more of those things that you're knowledgeable on that you can turn on in the equation with the technology, increases the better outcome. Like many people come to me and say, I want to live another 20 years. And I say to them, well, why don't you live a more fulfilling 10 minutes? Why don't we work on being more fulfilling? Why don't you become a more loving and compassionate person? Why don't you find ways that you can enhance the life that you're living now and make it more loving and compassion? And then the age part of it will take care of itself.
Yeah.
And we talked when we were in the other room that there's two types of age. There's biological age and there's chronological age. Now, chronological age is the age on your driver's license that says you were born this date. Right. But you could be 59 like I am, and you could have the body and the cells of a 40-year-old.
And the mind of a 12-year-old.
And that's true for a large percentage of people, including myself, but I'll give myself 13.
With or without technology.
I'm at least a teenager, so I'm not going to quite go there. But But that's true. But the other part of that can be true as well. The other part could be, hey, I'm 59, but I'm sitting home eating Cheetos, sitting on the couch, smoking cigarettes, and I look like I'm 80.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the thing about myself personally is that I want to do good in the world. I want to help everybody live a healthier, happier life. But I'm not a guy that you're going to come to that's going to coddle you, to romance you about regressing 20 years, because I know people that have used that technology, but what they found was that unhealthy cells, and when your health is going down, the vibrational rate of the cell is going down. Now, we could take these conversations so far off into left field, but one of the other interesting things is that there's something called a plasma parasite.
Ooh.
And a plasma parasite, so when you...
Why are you looking at me?
Wow.
I'm just a regular parasite. I know plasma about me.
Wow. I'm not going to say you implicated him with that look,
Right.
but I'm
Right,
just saying,
Sean, right?
I'm glad she looked to the right and not to the left, because, wow. But to talk about that for a minute, which is actually quite interesting, is that your aura, you know, there's a lot of things now that measure your aura and your fields. A lot of technology does that. When you're excessively drinking, when you're under the influence of heavy drugs, what it does is it opens up holes in your aura.
Oh.
And one of the problems that you can get is basically the attachment of a plasma parasite, which in normal terms would be referred to as a ghost. And so basically at the time of death, if you're holding on to anger, there's a lot of issues. You do not pass through the tube, as we might say. And so these plasma parasites attached to the body, they still have third dimensional needs and things, but, and this is all through Dan Winter because this is 100% based on physics. But these plasma parasites, and we call it astral hygiene, which is basically clearing yourself of those, but they can attach. And so what's interesting is a guy that's been to India, and I'm very deep into Vedic stuff, like very deep into it.
Very cool.
I lived right next to a Vedic temple for 30 years. And
Wow.
I met a lot of really amazing spiritual yogis, sadhus, sannyasis. Over there, that's just like, yeah, of course. Over here, like, oh, what are you talking about, ghosts and all that other? I mean, it's like, it's very interesting. Over there, you know, there was a Baba that I spent time with, and he could look at somebody right away and see that this person had a plasma parasite, a ghost or something attached to them. I don't know if anybody out there's had this experience, but when people get really heavily under the influence, you can look them very deep in the eye, and you can see that the person that you think you know is not there.
Right.
It's like, that guy right now, I feel like I'm looking you in the eye and I'm talking to you. I don't feel like it's the same person looking back at me. But to make a long story short, the plasma system that we have is also known to knock ghosts off people.
Oh.
Wow.
That one is, not the other one in the other room. This one here can literally cleanse the aura.
I got to say, I did not expect to come in here and hear how to knock off a ghost
I know.
out of your aura.
Well, I'm just saying, why would we just want to restrict it to this
No, absolutely.
boring physics stuff?
Yeah, no, I
let's
think it's
get into
great.
let's just swan
my
dive,
God.
Let's
into
woo it
some
up,
really-
baby.
Yeah, but I find that to be very interesting because the thing that I notice, and being a person that's deep into Eastern culture and Western culture, and I love them both, and I feel like both have a lot to show and
For
learn.
sure. Yeah.
Ultimately, what we're trying to do is educate people, right? And we're educating to, first off, open up their mind to the reality that surrounds them on every level, on every level. Just understanding first just all the things around you with trees, water, grounding. The other unit, the one that you jumped in, that's the celestial pod.
That was very cool.
Celestial pod.
The celestial pod.
You know what? It's appropriate. Apropos.
Apropos.
The angel goes into the celestial pod. That makes sense to me. Yeah.
Yes.
It was so interesting because when I was in there, and it was the second time when you had it, on the higher vibrations.
Yeah.
After a couple of minutes, all of a sudden, like something in my hips or my lower back or something just kind of released, and like just this energy went through me that like I almost started giggling. Like I felt like it almost tickled. It was like a giddy sort of feeling. It's very unexpected, very cool.
Yeah. The beauty about the experience that you had, and I feel like this is also something that's very profound, is that we store emotions in our body. So emotional trauma, whether it's stress, anxiety, it could be from childhood, whatever it is it stores itself in the body. So it's very possible that through the vibration and through all the different things, that it literally massaged or loosened up and brought out some type of emotion. One thing that massage therapists are really good about is knowing that when you're doing a deep tissue massage, that, you know, number one, it's bringing out some toxic stuff because that also stores in the body. But emotions are stored in the body. And so sometimes through that process, you know, you might have unhinged something, or just might have been just a little bit of stress that had been kind of tucked away, that when you're able to just relax and release, that actually enabled you to get that little pop or that little opening where all of a sudden it's like, oh, that feels great.
Well, it was interesting because there's a lot going on in there. And so it's like, oddly enough, because there's so much going on, it helps you focus on what's going on. I don't know. It's like a oxymoron situation because they're like everywhere, but focused.
So you're saying your mind was focused while you were in there.
Yes.
What was it focused on?
Well, I started meditating and I just like dropped right in.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
But you were like shaking too, right? Because he set the vibrations
all over the
up pretty
place.
high.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. There's all this stuff going on, but you can just
Shake, rattle, and roll.
Yeah.
It's actually interesting because that's a very common thing that I get, that people can go into a meditative state while they're in there and get really deep into that.
Well, Sean, what did you put on her? Like, what was it that was happening to her while she was in there?
It was a magic woo-woo spell that I did.
Did you do what I asked you to do?
Well, you did, yeah. Well, you know, first I kind of, you know, circulated the sage and said a few things, but actually the celestial pod is running about 8 different modalities.
Wow.
So it's running negative ions, ozone, terahertz frequency. Terahertz frequency is an optimal frequency for the cells. It's running the vibration, which, like we were saying earlier, understand the secrets of the universe, think energy, frequency, and vibration. It's running chromotherapy, gyrotherapy. It's running a multitude of different things that are all happening simultaneously. So,
but did it have the kitchen sink? No, I don't think so.
well, we didn't have the kitchen sink, but we did have a cooler. So you were able to grab a drink while you're in there.
Oh,
Really?
I like that.
Oh, no, that would have been cool.
So another thing that's interesting is that when he turned the vibrations up, even though it was a substantial increase, it was more steady. You know, and I guess that's kind of like if you're feeling this like up and down,
Okay.
also it's like really fast. Or I
All
don't
right.
know.
So, no, it makes perfect sense, and here's why. Bob Monroe, in his book, Journeys Out of the Body, which I just finished, again, reading it for I don't know how many times, he talks about the first onset of the very first thing that happens before you leave your body is to have there's these vibrations that come over you. And when you first start, they are at certain, I think, 10 cycles per second or something like that, which is very slow, but so it's really like violent, right? But then as you get better at it and you get closer to leaving your body, they speed up. The vibrations speed up to the point where it just becomes smoother.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's he talks about it in the book, so it makes
that's
perfect
cool.
sense. Yeah. So how does that work?
Well, basically, everything is based on frequency.
Okay.
Everything's frequency, right? How does Edward Casey tap into Akashic Records and be able to tell you everything without missing? Because he's at that high frequency level. So the ultimate goal is to raise your frequency into this theta state, into these high levels of consciousness. And as you do that, then all these gifts that we all have start becoming wow.
They get unlocked.
They get unlocked.
Got it.
100%.
So it's basically raising your vibration.
That's right.
While you're in the device, on the bed or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the brainwave states that it starts putting into like these theta states and these alpha states where it's like, wow, now, you're doing things that would seem to be supernatural, but they're actually quite natural. The other thing that I will say, that as the time of right now that this is being broadcast, we allow free access to the technology.
Wow.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So what we ask is that you call us, set an appointment. We want to make sure that we've got the time to spend with each person, moving them through the stations. We kind of set little timers so that everybody's in each station for the allotted time that's good for them. But right now, and for the last, since we've had this, we want people to come in and take advantage of what we've got here. We want to make this accessible to the general public.
Let me get this straight. You will allow anyone to give you a call, set an appointment, and come in and use this technology for free as often as they want.
As often as we're able to maintain helping them.
Sure.
Sure.
Now,
Now, if it's a serious health issue, I'm the one that's going to tell you need to be here as much as possible. I'm going to come to you and say, like, we have a couple locals that come through, and I'm like, you missed like 3 or 4 days, and that's fine. I know life happens, but I'd really appreciate if you come in at least every other day during the week. Try to get in here at least 3 days a week. But the goal for us right now is to collect data. Our goal is to do before and afters. I want to hear your story. I want to know what's going on. The most important thing is to show that this technology can actually really do benefits, and it's not something that you need to feel.
Right.
Like in the old days before you had that technology, people, well, I don't feel anything. Well, you could get hit alongside the head with a brick, and you're probably not sensitive. You might not feel that either. But there's other people that are also highly sensitive. They're like, oh my God, it's, so it's not like it's all about collecting data. Right. And that's what we want is we want an independent third party technology that's really there to collect the data, to give us the information and get out of the opinion-based reality of, what I feel or don't feel.
Right. And after all, you don't feel x-rays, and they're working just fine too. So that
Yeah.
makes perfect sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Great point. I think it's kind of interesting in a way that as we get more advanced, we're still not really connected into some of the key things that, maybe in past history we're a little bit more hip to. Maybe we didn't even know it, but we were still
More connected to it.
way more connected to it. So I would just tell everybody and anybody, start with something that's really simple, but it has a profound effect. It doesn't have to be real high tech stuff. I mean, the power of sunlight, the power of water, the power of the grounding, the power of your mind, just to circle back to our conversation of all these things we've started.
Sure.
We can swan dive into this technology, which I can have techie talk with you, and we could talk ETs, and I get into and I love it all. But I would say find one thing in this video today that we've talked about that you can start with. And if that means you go outside every day and you drink your coffee with your feet on the ground, start there.
That's a great suggestion.
It really is. Yeah.
No. Well, this has been fascinating and
So interesting.
eye-opening, and I always have a list of things that it is, but most of all, this has been exciting because there's all this stuff that we didn't know about that now, thanks to you have opened up our eyes to. So yeah, go do yourself a favor and run down that rabbit hole, run down many rabbit holes that we've covered today, because the beneficiary is definitely going to be you. So thank you so much for allowing us to come into your space and blowing up here, exploding in your area. Thank you for the tour that you gave us.
Yes.
And we look forward to testing out some more of these things.
Thank you so much. And I would say anybody watching the podcast, leave questions down below for everybody here, for Will, Karen, and be a part of it. Interact with everybody. Subscribe and share. You guys do a great job. I love the podcast, and I've been honored to be a part of it today. So thank you for taking the time to come over.
Well, we're honored to have you
pleasure.
on it.
Yes.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.